Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to have you tonight. My name is Billy Leonard. I'm a national marketing director with the Juice Plus company. I am here to read Dr. Reggie Fowler's bio, and then he is going to take you the rest of the way. But Dr. Fowler, thank you so much for giving us your time, your insight, your wisdom, and your experience. So let's. If you don't know Dr. Fowler, I know many of you do, let me read his bio. Dr. Reggie Fowler is a board certified internist who is a native of Rhode Island and received his undergraduate degree from Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. He received his Doctor of Medicine degree from Tufts University School of Medicine in Boston, Massachusetts. He then completed his internship and residency training in medicine at Grady Memorial Hospital and Emory University School of Medicine affiliated hospitals. He is a former acting medical director at PruCare, an HMO in Atlanta. He was the first Afro American medical director at IBM in Atlanta. He served as president of Pace's Ferry Medical Group in Atlanta for 23 years. He was also the first African American in the country to be selected to MDVIP, which is a group of physicians who concentrate on the prevention of disease. He actually served on the medical advisory board of this organization for almost 10 years. He has been selected as Doctor of the Year by the Atlanta Black Clergy, was selected as one of Atlanta's top 25 Afro-American physicians by Black Health magazine, as well as receiving many other awards. In addition, he has it's hard to find, a 5-star rating on health grades. He has volunteered multiple times over the years to perform examinations on athletes in Atlanta and Metro Atlanta school systems free of charge. He has been an assistant clinical professor for Morehouse School of Medicine and a preceptor for medical students in Georgia and also for physician's assistants from programs in Georgia, as well as from programs around the country. Dr. Fowler is now retired. Congratulations, as of May 2021, after 40 years. Good man. What a good man. After 40 years of practicing medicine, and really that means helping people. His proudest accomplishment, though, after all of that, is his marriage to his wife, Donna, and the birth of 3 wonderful and successful children, Brandy, Stephen, and Casey, all of whom graduated from public school in DeKalb County, Georgia, and have become experts in their field. Wow. What a bio. This is, you have like doctors, and then you have people like Dr. Fowler. So Dr. Fowler, it genuinely is an honor to have you on. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us tonight. Take it away.
Well, listen, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I'm glad to be doing this talk after Thanksgiving dinner. Okay. Because I think if I did it before, many of you probably wouldn't have eaten what you ate, but that's okay, because we all have to cheat sometime, okay? So, but we're gonna get into this tonight and kind of talk about, as the title says, good health, the next frontier. A lot of crazy things are going on right now in our world, as we all know, so let's kind of get into some of the meat of this, and hopefully, or the fruits and vegetables of this, I should say, okay, and get started. So anyway, first slide, let me go ahead and get this going, hold on. Make sure we got, hold on a second, guys. Make sure we got this, and make sure we advance this. All of a sudden it's not advancing for me, hold on, I'll get it. I'm gonna escape for a minute. Why is it frozen, guys, since I came back in? Okay, hold on. Okay, there it is. Okay, so yeah, so yeah, this person here, look at this person. So this is unfortunately what many of us do. We kind of procrastinate. I'm gonna say, hey, I know what we should be doing. I know what I should be doing to be healthy, what I should be eating to be healthy. I should be exercising, but I think, I'm gonna do this other stuff that's not too good today, and maybe I'll start tomorrow. So that's one of the problems that we have, not just in this country, but across the world, okay? So I wanted to show you this because, we're obviously, we've been dealing with a pandemic. And this is another epidemic which has become a pandemic. And pandemic basically means that it's spread to other continents, okay? This is an interesting graph, which goes to about 2016, but I'll update you to 2021, because the top line that you see there is basically what has happened to adults in this country in terms of the incident and rate of obesity. In 2016, it was almost 40%. As of last year, it tipped the scales, and now we're over 40% in terms of obesity in this country. Actually, the last value was about 41%. And in children, it's gone crazy as well. And this is really a major, major issue, especially in African American children. About 1 in 4 of those children are obese. So this is a major, major problem, and something that we have to really look at. And it's not just, like I said, here in the United States, but it's across the world. Now, you can look at this graph and you can see all the way over to the left that the United States leads all the countries, all the major countries in the world. We are the fattest, okay? And, and it's, look, we have issues here, The good thing is I know it's a capitalistic society, and people advertise what they want to advertise. We see those burgers on TV and they look so good, and we want to get into those things and eat as many as we can, and all these French fries and all this stuff. But unfortunately, that's what's causing this problem, okay? And we have got to do something about it, put our foot down, and do better when it comes to taking care of our health. Now, I wanted to, again, focus on obesity first, because obesity, we keep talking about this other pandemic, but this is one too that we need to pay attention to. The prediction is that by 2030, 50% of our population will be obese. 50%, guys, unless we do something about it, okay? Look at this statistic. Obesity now kills more people worldwide than car crashes, terror attacks, and Alzheimer's combined. A lot of people don't know that. And this is why I'm saying, we're talking so much about our dear friend COVID, okay? But we've got this thing, which is a preventable problem, and that we can really do something about. Okay? So, mortality rate, death rate for patients or people who have obesity, 6 to 12 times the average death rate. 6 to 12 times if you're obese. And that's an all-cause death rate from anything. If you're obese, you have a 6 to 12 times more increase in your ability to grab this whole death thing, okay? Which is not cool, not at all, okay? So again, as you can see in the last line, obesity is indisputably the greatest preventable health-related cause of death after cigarette smoking. Again, let me stress greatest preventable, okay? Now, what are these things that are contributing to this? Again, we already talked a little bit about, unfortunately, what we're exposed to on billboards and on TV and radio, you name it. And so let's talk about sugar a second. And the bottom line is sugar is okay, but if you exceed the amount that you're supposed to eat every day, it's not okay, because too much sugar causes inflammation. And also refined carbohydrates. So what I mean by that, that's your breads that your white flour makes up, your tortillas that are white flour, your bagels that are white flour, waffles. I told you all this stuff for breakfast for Thanksgiving, so I told you. Okay, all right, waffles, pastries, breakfast cereals, all these things, including white rice and many, many more, all of these things can cause inflammation, okay? And inflammation, as we're gonna see as we get a little more into this talk, is not a good thing, okay? It's not a good thing at all. And you can see in this, it also says right here, several health problems can occur, such as heart disease, diabetes, liver disease, and also cancer when you have too much inflammation. All right, so what's recommended? How much sugar should you consume on an average? Well, it's recommended that women, a little bit different from what guys, the recommendation is for guys, but women about 6 teaspoons, each teaspoon is 4 grams, so 6 teaspoons is 24 grams of sugar a day for women. And also for guys, it's about 9 teaspoons or 36 grams of sugar a day. Now, again, if you exceed those amounts, that's when the inflammation begins, okay? Now, what about salt and inflammation? Yeah, well, guess what? It's also associated with inflammation as well. And so we know that if we were to lower sodium in our diets, we would not have as much heart disease, stroke, and death overall. So minimizing your sodium is also important. So you might say to me, well, how much sodium? how much sodium should I consume? And I'll get to this slide in a minute. Well, the recommendation for sodium intake on an average daily is 2,300 milligrams or 2.3 grams. Now, obviously, if you have a disease that's sensitive to sodium, you don't want to consume that much. Now, what's more interesting about 2,300 milligrams is that that's a little less than a teaspoon a day, a little less than a teaspoon. It's not that much. But if you have one of these underlying conditions like hypertension, heart disease, kidney disease, et cetera, then you need to consume a lot less. Now, what's recommended to perform, for the body to perform its normal bodily functions when it comes to sodium, believe it or not, it's just 500 milligrams a day. That's it. Okay, that's it. So again, increasing the sodium in your diet can lead to more inflammation, which obviously leads to more disease. Now, next slide that I just showed you guys a little bit of. I want you to look at this picture of this apple. And also, same thing happens to that banana in your house when it starts to turn black, okay? This is what inflammation is all about, and these are the things that cause inflammation. And the things that cause inflammation is something we call free radicals, okay? And free radicals, you can see in the apple at the top, first of all, just over time becoming and turning into a diseased and old and rotten apple. And down below, you can see what's happening to the cells in the apple. They're being attacked by these so-called free radicals. So what is a free radical? Free radical is a molecule, we'll see more of that in the next slide, that's unstable. And we went to school, we know about molecules and electrons and protons and all this sort of stuff. Well, a molecule basically that's unstable is one that has lost an electron, okay? And when that happens, it looks for another molecule to try to neutralize itself, but it pulls another electron out. So you keep getting this cascade of events that leads to what we call oxidation. When you remove an electron from something, that entity becomes oxidized, okay? And that's what we're seeing here. This apple over time is becoming oxidized. And I want to make another comment here while we're looking at this. Fruits and vegetables, when you go to the market, whether it's the local market or the farmer's market or whatever, understand this. When those fruits and vegetables are on the shelf, they're already going through this process to some degree. So you're not going to get all of the antioxidants which you need in those fruits and vegetables all the time that you think you get it. And now I'm not saying you shouldn't buy those things, because you should. But to be honest with you, frozen fruits and vegetables are better, because within 6 hours usually of harvesting, they freeze the fruits and vegetables. So all of those antioxidants that help protect us against these free radicals are preserved, okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. So here we go again with these free radicals. And you can see it says the term science gives us to an unstable molecule that slowly destroys our bodies. This is not good, guys, okay? And this is what we're dealing with every day. You know, our DNA, for example, gets hit about 10,000 times a day by free radicals. And you don't want that to happen, but it's happening. But when DNA gets hit, it causes mutations. And about every day we develop about one cancer cell. And thank the Lord, most of us that have reasonable immune systems go ahead and our cells that kill cancer cells take care of that, so we're not getting cancer, okay? So, but we need more antioxidants to keep our immune system strong so that we can continue to fight off this kind of thing. So as you can see, free radicals come from, as we already talked about, some of these poor food choices. Stress is another thing that causes free radicals, okay? Radiation from the sun, pollution. Let me stop here and talk about this a second, because a lot of people don't realize this. You know, my daughter, who's probably on this call, who lived in Los Angeles for a while, and I always told her, I said, daughter, I said, LA, great place, unfortunately, has some of the worst air in the world. And that was, actually in the news this past year about LA and pollution. In the air, this pollution has, guess what? Free radicals. And free radicals, again, we already know what they do. And if you look at the data on inner cities, more heart attacks, more asthma, more of these diseases that are associated with inflammation. So again, it's probably good that people wear masks now in California mostly, okay? Probably helping them to prevent some of those small particles as well from getting into their systems and causing problems with inflammation. Also, lastly, you can see toxins in water, okay? Also can have free radicals in them as well. All right, this little person, this little lady is getting bombarded by free radicals. This is what happens to all of us every day. And if we don't control things, these are the kinds of diseases that we can get. And you can see it's everything from diabetes, cancer, even problems with sleep. People with sleep apnea, for example, when it's not treated, develop a lot of inflammation, okay? And that inflammation leads them down the path of having more heart attacks and strokes, okay? So understand that as well. You can see asthma, you can see allergies, arthritis, all of these things, and accelerated aging for many of you who are trying to stay young. Free radicals, again, lead to aging, disease, and death of tissue. So again, we need to do everything in our power to keep these free radicals and neutralize them as best we can. Now, okay, you know I was going to show you this. Okay, how could I not give a talk, or how could I give a talk and not mention this COVID virus, okay? So what's interesting about COVID, and you know we're going through mutations all the time, and now we've got Omicron, and it's an absolute mess. But what I want to emphasize is this: when this virus first started causing and wreaking havoc last year, I predicted that the people who did worst, the ones who did the worst in the hospitals, were the ones who were going to have a lot of inflammation associated with their bodies, okay? And sure enough, when the data was looked at, obese people, a whole bunch of them did not do well, did not survive this thing. The people with underlying conditions, and what's interesting, and these are the non-communicable underlying conditions. I mean, you can't give it to someone else. You can't give anybody hypertension. You can't give anyone diabetes. You can't give anyone heart disease. But all of those entities, just like we saw in the previous slide, are associated with inflammation. And COVID loves people who are inflamed, okay? When COVID gets into your body, and you can see those lungs there, I put that there because there are a lot of these receptors in the lungs that COVID likes, okay? But those receptors for COVID, where it inserts its spike, are also in the blood vessel walls. And they're called, there's a name for them, I don't want to get too technical, but they're called ACE2, ACE2 receptors. And when COVID sticks its spike into one of those things, that's when the inflammatory processes start. So the important thing is, when it comes to COVID, in addition to what we already know about the vaccines, but you need to get your immune system strong. And the best way to do that, of course, is to make sure that we're getting more fruits and vegetables so we can have more antioxidants, which can neutralize those free radicals that I told you about that are causing more inflammation and causing dysregulation of our immune systems. And obese people, that's what they have, dysregulation of the immune system, as well as those other diseases I mentioned, okay? Now, I mentioned, I don't know where that line is there, but anyway, I mentioned stress is a cause of free radicals and inflammation. So we need to be more cognizant of that. Take some time out each day, meditate, do yoga, whatever it takes to relax your mind, because that will decrease the amount of inflammation that we have. All right. What about exercise? And I just put this slide up about walking in general, because I think, you hear things all the time about how much we should walk. And of course, everybody's heard about 30 minutes a day, which is ideal. The 10,000 steps a day is also excellent. There's no question, no, we're not questioning any of that. These researchers looked at a 20-minute daily walk, and all these benefits were reached just by doing that. Walking 20 minutes a day was shown to trigger an anti-aging process. Obviously, to repair old DNA. I just told you that free radicals damage DNA. I just told you that free radicals lead to aging, disease, and death. So obviously, walking is having an impact. So walking is important. And bottom line is, and you look at the bottom paragraph down here, it says, look, exercise can buy you 3 to 7 additional years of life. It is an antidepressant, improves your cognitive function, makes you think better, and now has evidence it may even retard the onset of dementia, okay? So walking is important. I'm going to go to the next slide now because it talks a little bit beyond walking, and that's jogging. So this is an intriguing slide that I want to show you guys. This is the Copenhagen Heart Study. And they looked at joggers in this study. And what was fascinating to me about this was that the joggers who ran, as you can see in the first sentence, 1 to 2.4 hours per week, had the lowest risk of mortality, with a significant 71% lower risk of death than sedentary non-joggers. In other words, people who sat on their tails and didn't do anything. 71% decrease in the risk of death by jogging 1 to 2.5 hours a week. Now I'm going to jump to the bottom line here, because what's interesting is that the pace of the jogging is important, because those who ran faster, 7 miles per hour or more, had the same death risk as the ones who sat down and did nothing. So speed, when it comes to jogging, is not important. The slower paced joggers had as you can see, almost a 50% lower risk of death compared to those who sat down and did nothing. Now, what's also fascinating was that those who jogged 2.5 to 4 hours a week, or more than 4 hours a week, did not have a lower risk of death compared to those who sat down and did nothing. So there is a time sequence here and a rate sequence here when it comes to how fast. So I wanted to show you this because we don't have to get out there and try to be like marathoners, okay? Just do what's recommended. We talked about walking. Now you can see if you want to jog, but you don't have to overdo it, because sometimes overdoing it, you get no benefit, okay? All right, water. I got this question asked to me so many times by patients. Doc, how much water should I drink? Now, obviously, those who have problems like congestive heart failure and kidney disease, you have to watch out with how much water you're drinking. You should consult your doctors about that. Folks in general who are healthy with normal physiology, this is what's recommended. It's a lot, okay? 15.5 cups of water a day, of fluids a day for men, and about 11.5 cups for women. Now, understand that 20% of food that you eat has water, okay? All right, about 20% of the food that you eat has water in it. So you don't always, just kind of do your calculations as best you can, and make sure that you're getting enough water in. Now, water is important because water, and in fiber, we're going to talk about in a minute too, is important. But the health experts say, look, if you drink water like you're supposed to, and you take in a diet and consume a diet that's rich in antioxidants, then the water should help you flush out toxins. That's what health experts think, okay? Here's the fiber. Okay, fiber is important because fiber helps with inflammation. Women, is recommended, should consume about 21 to 25 grams of fiber a day, men about 30 to 38. Now, why is fiber also important? There are other reasons for it too, because fiber, if you guys, most of you have heard about probiotics, okay? Probiotics, as you know, probiotics in fruits and vegetables, and probiotics in yogurt, and several other sources of probiotics. But probiotics need fiber, which serve as prebiotics in order for the probiotics to work. In other words, the probiotics feed on fiber, which is called a prebiotic. So it's always important to make sure that you get enough fiber in, because that's going to help your probiotics. And as we all know, the bacteria in the gut, which is where the probiotics go when you consume them, are so important in terms of disease prediction and disease prevention. So you want to make sure that you're trying to get in enough fiber, as well as your probiotics, which you can get from fruits and vegetables, as well as things like I mentioned, yogurt, and some people take probiotics as well. One last thing about probiotics, if you're taking antibiotics, always remember that they're going to wipe out some bacteria in your gut. So you need to talk to your docs about this, because generally when you take antibiotics, you want to make sure you're taking some kind of probiotic or something that's, food that contains a lot of probiotics, or a capsule or whatever, because you want to make sure that you replace those bacteria that the antibiotic is wiping out. Now, the purpose of the antibiotic is to kill whatever is affecting you from an infectious standpoint, but also, unfortunately, kills off a lot of other bacteria. And some studies show that it takes up to a year to replenish those bacteria in the gut that the antibiotic kills. So remember that, and also, like I said, just consult your docs about that as well. Okay. So antioxidants, this is what we've been talking about. And these are the guys that neutralize the free radicals that are causing inflammation, causing aging, disease, and death. And this is what we need to look at seriously, guys. And these antioxidants and phytonutrients basically prevent disease. Antioxidants are the nutrients that help to neutralize the free radicals. And in plants, as you can see, there are thousands of these, which is why it's so important to make sure that we consume plants in the form of whole food nutrition. I'm going to stress that, whole food nutrition. Let's take that apple, for example. I know we saw that apple that was going bad, okay? But let's go back to the apple a second, talk about the apple. Now, an apple has over 10,000 phytonutrients or antioxidants, okay? That's about 5% vitamin C, okay? The vitamin C is an antioxidant. It works with those antioxidants in the apple to strengthen our immune system and also to fight free radicals, okay? If you take the vitamin C out and put it in a tablet or a multivitamin or whatever, it's not going to be the same as eating the whole food like that whole apple with all of those phytonutrients in it, plus the vitamin C, which work together or synergistically to help our immune systems be strong and fight these free radicals and decrease inflammation. Now, what's also interesting, I want to tell you guys about, remember I mentioned probiotics are in fruits and vegetables, right? Do you know that an apple has about 100 million bacteria? About 100 million, okay? So, you know, that old adage back in the day when they used to say an apple a day keeps the doctor away, there might have been something to that, okay? Because those probiotics in that apple are important for our gut health, okay? Let me move on. All right, so phytonutrients / antioxidants, basically both of the same was what we're talking about here. They're believed to play a role in cancer, as you can see, by preventing and causing cancer cells to die. They help to repair DNA damage by smoking and other toxic exposures. And here's the big one again, they decrease inflammation, which is believed to contribute to the development of chronic diseases such as diabetes, arthritis, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. So again, so important to consume phytonutrients, which you generally going to get from eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. All right, I want to show you this little slide about nuts. You know, people, and a lot of my patients, I educated them well about nuts and the importance of nuts and how healthy they are. This is an interesting study that was done on colon cancer. And basically what it showed is that if you just ate 2 handfuls of nuts a week, it would decrease the risk of colon cancer recurrence if you had it by 43% and decrease the death rate from colon cancer by 58%. Just 2 handfuls of nuts a week. Why is that? Because those nuts also contain those phytonutrients, okay? I can't stress that enough, the importance of these phytonutrients. At the bottom of the slide, you can also see that nuts are great for other things, prevention of type 2 diabetes, help improve insulin resistance, which helps your insulin work better in the face of someone who has prediabetes or diabetes. Okay. This is a slide that my dear friend, Dr. Du Bois used to have and shared with me, which shows this amazing study that was 19 years. It was a governmental study which showed that the greater consumption of fruits and vegetables basically decreased the risk of death from any cause. So the more fruits and vegetables you eat, the less is your risk of dying from anything. Okay? All right, so what is recommended in terms of how much we should eat? How many fruits and vegetables should we eat every day? And this is it. This is what's recommended. You'll see some regulations 5 to 7 servings, but this is it. 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Now this is tough to do because a serving is a little smaller than your fist, okay? That's a lot, 7 servings of fruit and vegetables a day. So we need to obviously do the best we can to consume this amount, because this is the amount that helps us, again, neutralize those free radicals so that we can decrease inflammation and hopefully help us when it comes to disease processes. All right, so I'm putting this up now. This is Juice Plus, which many of you know about. Juice Plus is basically these first 3, the fruit blend, the vegetable blend, and berry blend, and the omegas, which are on the end, we'll talk about later. Those are omega 3s and 5s, and so we'll get into that a little bit later, but the bottom line is I want to talk about what Juice Plus is all about first, okay? So, and I apologize for this slide, which is a little blurred, but I want you to be able to see that Juice Plus itself is full of these fruits and vegetables in those first 3 bottles that you see on the left. And you can see the slide says more than 30 fruits and vegetables, berries, grains, and oils. The oils are the omega-3s that are to the far right. But the grains are also in there. And you can see oats are in there. And if you can kind of make it, I know it's kind of tough. But, you know, it's full of these phytonutrients. It has some fiber, but you need to definitely make sure you're getting enough fiber in because it doesn't have as much fiber as recommended. So, but in terms of the phytonutrients, here they are, okay? And all of the fruits and vegetables. And again, understand, this is whole food nutrition. Everything that you see there are in these capsules, okay? And you might say, how the heck did they do that? So let's move on. So anyway, again, everything that you see there, all this whole food, plant-based nutrition are in those capsules. So Juice Plus, let's talk about it some more. It's non-GMO, it's gluten-free, it's insecticide-free, herbicide-free, preservative-free, only 1 gram of carbohydrate serving per day. It's concentrated whole food. Again, I can't stress this enough. The FDA does not call Juice Plus a supplement. The FDA has labeled Juice Plus as concentrated whole food, which means that whole food, like I've been talking about, contains all of the phytonutrients that we need to fight these free radicals and decrease inflammation. And lastly, it's not a dietary supplement. That's not what it's called. Again, it's called concentrated whole food by the FDA. Okay. So I wanted to put this up. This is an Italian scientist named Letizia Bresciani. And I think years ago, she had nothing really to do with Juice Plus, but she heard about this over in Italy. And so she decided to use her scientific tools to kind of see if this stuff was for real, okay? And so she used her scientific tools, and what was interesting is that you see in the bottom paragraph there, it says, moreover, the preparation of these capsules appears to preserve these components from degradation, keeping them robustly in the forms that they are present in plants. Now, that's a heavy-duty statement, because what she's saying is all of those phytonutrients that are in those plants, in those fruits and vegetables, are in these capsules. And she said that she's never, in the first paragraph, you can see that a richness and variety has never been reported before for this type of product, okay? So Juice Plus is very unique in that regard. The preparation preserved and has preserved all of those phytonutrients, which we need desperately to fight these free radicals that are causing inflammation and disease. All right, so what's not in Juice Plus? All right, these 2 vitamins are not in Juice Plus, so let's talk about them in a second. Vitamin B12 is animal derived, that's why it's not in Juice Plus. Juice Plus is fruits and vegetables. So B12 is from meat sources, animal sources. B12 is important. I'm gonna spend just a little bit of time on this because as a clinician and internist and I've practiced for so many years, I wanna kind of share some information with you about this. When we were in medical school, we were taught that, hey, look, you know, when you think somebody might be B12 deficient, look at the red blood cell count. And I'm sorry, the red blood cell morphology, in other words, what the red cells look like. And if the size of the red cell is elevated, then that person might be B12 deficient, folic acid deficient, might have underactive thyroid, or sometimes cancer can make them big too, okay? So that's what we were taught. Now, in the real world, however, people can become B12 deficient and that red cell size did not increase at all, okay? So one has to be cognizant of that as a patient, and also your physician needs to be cognizant of that as well. Now, vitamin B12, if it is low, and you guys can still hear me, right? You still hear me? Okay. Vitamin B12, if it's low, it can cause some issues. So sometimes people will present with numbness or tingling in their fingers or toes. Sometimes it'll affect your cognition, your ability to remember things. And also it can affect your blood count sometimes. So you don't have to wait. The doctor does not have to wait until that red cell becomes large before you start looking for B12 deficiency. And the magic number is under 400. If the B12 level is under 400, then some of those things I mentioned can start occurring, okay? So just FYI on that. Now what about vitamin D3? The sunshine vitamin. Again, my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Du Bois and I discussed vitamin D some 20 years ago, the importance of it. We all know, and everybody hears about vitamin D all the time now. We know it's very important for strengthening our immune systems. It's very important in terms of decreasing inflammation, okay? It's very important in terms of probably preventing to some degree autoimmune disease. If you look at folks that live up in the northern part of the United States, there seems to be more autoimmune disease there. And we think that's because of the lack of sunlight and low vitamin D levels. When it comes to COVID, the people who were hospitalized with COVID who did not do well, many of them had vitamin D levels under 20, okay? So it does play a significant role. I've seen recent studies saying vitamin D is also good for the skin and hair. Obviously didn't help me, but anyway, okay. But there's some data to show that it helps that as well, okay? Now, people ask also, well, how much vitamin D should I take? How much should I take? And the way I've handled this is that you try to get your level in your blood to 50, okay, or higher, but not too high, because if you get it too high, if you get up 100 or more, you can get vitamin D toxicity, which is not a good thing. That people who have that, they start having symptoms like a diabetic. They are thirsty, they're urinating like crazy, and if the calcium goes up when your vitamin D is real high too, they go up high enough to make your heart squeeze and then not open up. Not a good thing, okay? So the important thing is to take as much as you need to get your level around 50. Now, the other thing that's important too when it comes to the elderly is that sometimes what the data has shown is that if you take 60,000 units or more a month, and that's just 2,000 a day in the elderly, sometimes it will increase the fall risk. In other words, mess with your balance. So that's not a good thing either. So again, just some little points about vitamin D to think about. Okay, so Juice Plus, we talked about phytonutrients. We know that we have them in Juice Plus. Letitia Bresciani, the scientist, showed us that those phytonutrients are there. So the bottom line is, are they absorbed by the body? So Juice Plus looked at this. So, you consume these capsules, do these nutrients really get in the body so that they can fight these free radicals? And the answer to that is yes. All these studies were done on that, and this was done in a diverse population, people of all sizes and shapes and ethnicities, and we know that it definitely gets into the body. Okay. All right. Now there are over 40 peer-reviewed studies, published studies, incredible journals that Juice Plus is in. This is not snake oil. This is the real deal. This is what we as clinicians like to see, research that's been done on this product. And it's just so much research. I'll talk about more before we end this talk, but just wanted to kind of give you an idea that this stuff is the most thoroughly researched brand name nutrition product in the world today. Okay? 76% or more of these studies that were done are double-blinded, placebo-controlled. What that means is this. These are the kind of studies we as scientists like to see. That means when the person was in the study, they didn't know what they were receiving. The person that was giving them the product didn't know what it was, but the researcher has everything labeled. So at the end of the study, there's no cheating, and they can look at the data. And this is the kind of study that's called double-blinded placebo control that we like to see. Okay? This is even being done with the COVID vaccine early on, as you probably heard on TV. Okay. All right. Oxidative stress. Now, oxidative stress, go back to that picture of that apple again. That apple was undergoing oxidative stress, which is the same thing as the free radicals attacking it. So this is all about inflammation, and oxidative stress is inflammation. And when you have more oxidative stress, you have more free radical generation. More free radical generation generates more oxidative stress. Juice Plus has done 12 studies on oxidative stress, which is basically inflammation. And in every study, every one of those studies, oxidative stress or inflammation was significantly reduced. Now, here's one study I want to just talk about that was done over in Australia. And this gets into some genetics a little bit. So we're going to talk about this. I'm trying to make this very simple. But fruits and vegetables in general, if you eat enough of them, good things can happen to your genes, okay? And in this study with Juice Plus, you can see here that the one on top, the first one that you see, this upregulated insulin signaling genes. These are the genes that help insulin work better. And these genes were given a positive punch with Juice Plus. It downregulated, meaning it decreased the efficacy of the genes that cause problems with cholesterol issues, okay? And also decreased these NF-kappa B genes. Now, I think on this phone call, there may be some guys that are in the Kappa fraternity. So I'm sorry, guys, but your genes these genes cause inflammation. Okay, so just to let you know that. But Juice Plus decreased the ability of these genes to produce those inflammatory proteins. And the last thing in this study, it upregulated and improved these AMPK genes, with the genes that cause and give energy to the cells. So it literally changed how the genes function. And this is what's called epigenetics. It's like turning the switch on. Good things that you take into your body will turn on genes to do the right thing. Bad things will turn on the bad genes to do the bad things. Okay, in that same study, this is what happened as a result of that. Total cholesterol is decreased. LDL cholesterol is decreased. Tumor necrosis factor alpha, this is an inflammatory protein that also, by the way, getting back COVID again, was many of the patients who did poorly in the hospital. They looked at several patients, they looked at this inflammatory protein, and this thing was significantly elevated in those patients who did not do well. Juice Plus decreases it. It decreased systolic blood pressure. It increased lean muscle mass. And these patients, these were obese patients. They were inflamed, obviously, like I said, because they had obesity. But in those patients over time, the muscle mass improved and increased. And it also, of course, Juice Plus decreased systemic inflammation. And I'm not surprised, since we've already been discussing that. Okay. The decrease that they saw in cholesterol was equivalent, basically was 7.4%, which was equivalent to about a 19.8-pound weight loss and a 19% decrease in the risk of cardiovascular disease as a result of that study. Okay. Now, these are some newer studies. I'm just going to go through these quickly, but this is fascinating. This is when Juice Plus was used with Juice Plus Complete, which is the shake that Juice Plus has. And this improved, this was in women, this improved glucose clearance, or clearance of blood sugar, by altering the intestinal microbiota. Again, back to the microbiome in the gut. So it improved the gut bacteria so that these folk were able to clear their blood sugar better than they did prior to this study. Okay, another study that was recently done, these are 2021, as you can see, the other one was published in 2021 as well. This one was really fascinating as well because it improved executive function in terms of short-term memory, working memory, selective and sustained attention, and speed of processing things. I think we all need some of that. Okay, and this is what Juice Plus was shown to do. Fascinating, fascinating. Now I threw this in here for all the vain people, okay, because everybody's concerned about how they look, right? So this is one of the oldest studies that Juice Plus did, but I wanted people to see this because we know it's bioavailable. We know it gets into the bloodstream. We know it also gets into the skin, these antioxidants. It improved the circulation in the skin, the capillaries of the skin, by 39%, more blood flow to the skin. It improved the density and the thickness of the skin, improved hydration of the skin as well. And also there were fewer lines and wrinkles as a result. So all of you who want to keep looking gorgeous, all right, pay attention to this slide, okay? All right, okay. Let's see. All right, so here are some of the places that have done studies on Juice Plus, and you can add more to this list. I'm not going to keep this up too long, but these, obviously, these institutions are pretty incredible. As you can see, from Vanderbilt to Yale to, you name it. It's just an incredible list of places. Okay, so let's talk about this and kind of sum things up a little bit. So we know Juice Plus is bioavailable. It gets into the bloodstream. We know that. We know it also protects from DNA damage because I told you DNA is hit about 10,000 times a day by these free radicals. We know that the 12 studies on oxidative stress, we know that Juice Plus definitely protects and neutralizes free radicals. So it protects our DNA from that standpoint. We already know it reduces oxidative stress we just mentioned, which is basically inflammation. It supports a healthy inflammatory response. Well, again, by decreasing free radicals, you're going to get a healthy inflammatory response. One thing I want to tell you guys here is that one of the things that got me really turned on to Juice Plus, because I was a skeptic in the beginning and 20 years ago, but it was a study that they did on the immune system. And what they did, this was before we had this vineyard blend, better known as the berry blend. This was fascinating because in 28 days, they gave the folks the orchard blend or the vegetable blend and the fruit blend. And in 28 days, every aspect of the immune system was enhanced. Every aspect, even the cells, the so-called NK1 cells, which is the cells that kill cancer cells. And that was seen in the elderly population as well. So again, it definitely supports the immune system. We know that. Now you've got the berry blend. You can add to that, which gives you more antioxidants as well, in addition to the first two that we used in that study. Okay. Another study that was done on lung health, it says in smokers, well, they actually did a study. There's a test we do called spirometry in the office. Sometimes you blow into this machine and we see what your lung function's like. Many of you probably had that. Well, there's something called FEV1, which is how much air you can blow out forcibly in 1 second. And it improved that, even in smokers. Okay, so that was interesting. Periodontal health, gum disease. Yes, did a study on gum disease, and in about 90 days, decreased gum bleeding. The pocket depth, when you go to the dentist and they use that little probe to see how deep your pockets are, you hear them go 2, 3, that improved in 90 days as well. Okay, so also beneficial for periodontal disease and periodontal health as well. Okay, we already talked about the skin. We saw that, all you vain people. Okay, all right, and also the improved metabolism in overweight boys. A study done down in Orlando at this hospital called the Morehouse Children's Hospital, where they took overweight boys and gave them Juice Plus. And what they found in that study was that not only did they improve their ability to handle their blood sugar, but in addition to that, they also improved and increased their lean muscle mass as well. Okay. And lastly, also had more what we call carotenoids, which are basically more antioxidants in the blood as a result of taking Juice Plus. Now, both groups, the group, I tell you, this is a double-blinded control study. So the group that they both had the same diet, but at the end of the study, this is what the Juice Plus boys had compared to the ones that did not. All the things I mentioned. All right, another thing, AIDS and surgical wound healing. This was done at the University of Florida. What was found there, and this was published in the journal Nutrition. What they found there years ago was that Juice Plus increased something called the delta T cell. And the delta T, you always hear about T cells now. Again, these are the guys that control our immune system. They're the generals. They tell everything else what to do, basically. And these delta T cells are the ones that are involved in wound healing. And those are the ones that Juice Plus actually raised in this study. And researchers to this day can't figure out how it did it, but it did by about over 30%, raised them. And those are the ones that are helpful when it comes to wound healing. Okay. And lastly, supports cardiovascular health. We already saw a lot of that, by decreasing blood pressure in some people. In addition to that, the cholesterol issue, the inflammation issue. Let me mention, and I want you guys definitely don't forget this point. And we're going to get back, talk about cardiovascular health briefly, and we're going to talk about heart attacks. So when you hear about somebody having a heart attack, it is not usually from that artery over time, developing more plaque, getting so narrow that you have to put a stent in before they have a heart attack. That is not what's causing the heart attacks mostly. What's causing the heart attacks is inflammation in the wall of the vessel. How does that start? Well, that starts by getting back again to these doggone free radicals. The free radical actually attacks LDL cholesterol. When it attacks LDL cholesterol, what did I tell you about free radicals and what they do? It's an unstable molecule. It's looking for an electron. It takes that electron out of the LDL. When that LDL becomes damaged, it's floating around in the bloodstream. We have these cells called macrophages, okay? Macro means big, phage means to eat. So they're running around the bloodstream looking for things to get rid of, okay? And they see that damaged LDL that has a charge on it now because electrons are missing, and it takes it to the lining of the blood vessel wall. When it gets there, to that artery wall, that's when the inflammation starts. And that becomes what we call an unstable plaque, okay? And guess one of the inflammation proteins that goes there is our dear friend again, 2-metacrosis factor alpha, which we already know Juice Plus lower than that study and also in another study. So inflammation is what makes the plaque unstable, and it breaks off from the wall of the artery, blocks the blood flow, and that's how you have your heart attack and strokes, same mechanism. It is not, again, from that artery over time becoming narrow where you have to put a stent in. That's not what causes the heart attacks. It's unstable plaque. So again, if you can decrease the inflammation significantly, then we should not have as much in terms of heart attacks and strokes, okay? All right, again, a slide from my dear friend and colleague and now departed Dr. Du Bois, where he said, and he's right, and he always will be right, God bless him, nothing in the world with or without a prescription can do what Juice Plus does. It's evidence-based. We've seen the evidence. We know it's clinically proven. Nothing else can do what it does. Here's Dr. Du Bois. Okay. Yeah, I had to put his picture up there. You know, he's my mentor. Okay. So, and this is Dr. Du Bois talking about Juice Plus Complete. You know, Juice Plus has other products. I'm just going to briefly talk about this. Juice Plus Complete is protein-based, soy protein-based product, which has been given a perfect score of 1. This is the only plant protein powder in the country that's ever achieved that rating, 1, which means it's the best and highest quality protein that you can consume. And this is what's in Juice Plus Complete. In addition to that, there's soluble fiber in Juice Plus Complete. Soluble fiber is what lowers cholesterol, okay? Insoluble fiber is what bulks up your stool. So I just want to make that distinction. We need both, okay? But soluble fiber is what really lowers cholesterol. Okay. All right, so here are the omegas. Another product Juice Plus has. And I put this up here because, again, since I've been talking so much about inflammation-free radicals, I want you to know that omegas are also anti-inflammatory, okay? So what Juice Plus did was they went ahead and created this incredible plant-based omega product, okay? They bypassed fish, and, you know, fish, in order for fish to have omega-3s, they have to eat algae, okay? And then the omega-3 develops in the fish. Well, this comes from all of that already. So we bypassed the fish. And you can see the different omegas in here. A lot of you guys just heard about omega-3s with the 3, 5, 6, 7, 9. All of these are anti-inflammatory. Even omega-7 has been shown in some studies, especially at the Cleveland Clinic, to be important in terms of lowering lipids and cholesterol as well. So remains to be seen. Now, the only study that so far that I've seen on this so far, the Juice Plus is continually doing studies, as you can see, but they did one which showed that the levels of omega-3s, and this can be drawn by doing blood tests, you can see what your level of omega-3 is, in 2 months was in a clinically significant level in the, at a clinically significant level in the blood, compared to other omegas, which take several more months to get there. Okay, so I wanted to mention that. And since I mentioned drawing blood for things, I just want to also mention this about the chronic inflammation piece. Now, chronic inflammation, again, is something that you cannot feel, okay? Acute inflammation, you can feel, because if God forbid you fall down and sprain your ankle, it swells, that's acute inflammation. If your body's doing its thing, it's trying to repair itself. But chronic inflammation, you can't feel. So the only way you're gonna know if you have that is to have your healthcare provider draw blood work to see if in fact it's there, okay? My porch, okay, what else does Juice Plus have? These are 2 of my so-called tower gardens. So those of you on the call who don't want to get Juice Plus, well, grow your own fruits and veggies. Okay, Juice Plus has this available as well. And we kind of, in our household, we eat our fruits and veggies from our tower garden, and we also take our Juice Plus as well. So this is another healthy way to take care of these free radicals and decrease inflammation, okay? Juice Plus Children's Program, I'm just going to mention this briefly, and I'm sorry the slide is a little blurred, but just to let all of you know on the call that if an adult buys Juice Plus, then a child can get this from age 4 years old up and through the college years rather, can get Juice Plus for free. And so a couple million kids in the world are getting Juice Plus for free right now. And the study has been incredible because the kids who take it, they're eating more fruits and vegetables, they're drinking more water, they have less doctor visits and take less medication. Okay. Sandy can, when we finish, can tell you more about that, I'm sure. Okay. So thank you for listening, guys. I don't know how far over I went, but I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much.